Hello, and welcome to episode 43 of Relax and Chat. Got a real treat for you today. I've got author Jade Black, and she got a brand new book releasing today. So this should be quite exciting. How are you doing today, Jade?
Yeah, I'm doing good. And it's sort of fortuitous that this is episode 43 because that is the age that the main character in this book is at the end of the compendium timeline. He's not quite that old in this book, but that's just a nice little bit of serendipity to open with. How are you doing,
Yeah,
Rod?
yeah, that's pretty cool. Oh, I'm about the same as always. I try to stay happy. I try to stay cheerful. I am always incredibly busy. I'm understaffed and working a lot. It's just part of running a small business. So I don't mind it, but boy, I get tired sometimes, you know?
Oh, I feel you. I feel you.
Yeah. Well, if you are cool with it, we'll jump right into the questions. And,
Sure thing.
I had a few things I wanted to ask about. First of all, I understand that you're in Yorkshire, England. Is that right?
I've sort of I've moved around a lot. So I was born up north and I went to undergrad uni up north. So when I wrote that bio, that was true. That is slightly out of date now. I'm now all the way down south again. But I've lived here, there, and everywhere across the UK, which is why my accent is a mess. And everyone seems to think I'm Aussie when they hear me talk instead, because they're just like, that's not an English accent, I know. So I
I
don't I
think
don't hear it, but yeah.
I think you have a lovely accent.
Well, thanks.
I've always loved the way the British speak, their terminology, their accent. There's a lot of things to love about the UK. So yeah, I'm a big fan, and I love the accent. It's awesome.
Well, thank you.
Now this kind of struck me, and I wasn't really sure what to think. So the best way to find out is to ask you. It seems that in your series now, the Determined Ones, right?
Yep.
In your series, it appears that your stories are kind of Asian crime dramas or thrillers, kind of based in an Asian location. And first, I wanted to ask, you know, being from the UK, what sent you to write in that particular genre? And then as part two of that would be, did you have to do a lot of research, or did you actually live in Asia, you know, to know their culture and things they do, and all that kind of stuff? It seems because I'm in Kentucky, and if I
Mm.
even tried to write something in Australia or Asia or Russia or anywhere, well, I'd have to do a mountain of research. So I'm curious, how did you go from England to, hey, I'm going to write this series of books, and I like the idea of it being set in Asia. How did you go about that process?
So it's an interesting continent that my work is set on because it's an alternate world, but it's not a fantasy world. There's no magic, there's no sci-fi tech, no this, no that. It is just an alternate world that operates on basically the same rules as ours. It's sort of medieval feudal sort of time period,
Uh-huh.
if you want to think of it that way. It's a very diverse land. So the area that I end up writing about most is the nation of Huko, which is sort of very think feudal Japan when you think about Huko. But you get all sorts of stuff. So there's a bit of Norway in there. There's a bit of Wales in there. There's a bit of Italy, bit of Greece, bit of Egypt, bit of Morocco, bit of Switzerland. I mean, you name it. There's influence and sort of culture from everywhere. And that's not a conscious decision. That's just kind of how it turned out. I sort of do very little dictating how the story or how the world should be. It's here's a character, here's a story, and oh, okay, this one's set in somewhere that's sort of a bit like this. All right, let's go with it then. It's more that than anything else, and that's kind of my approach to genre at a point as well. I'll get a bit more on that later.
So the
So
series is set in a fictional world that's based on sort of a bunch of locations, right?
somewhat based on it's some amount of it is quite loose, some amount of it is tighter. It's just it ends up being what it ends up being. The characters know it a whole lot better than I do, so they're like, oh yeah, there's this thing. I'm like, okay, cool, write that down. There are areas where I'm researching because I'm just like, oh yeah, what like how what how do plants work? What plants might I see here? Is that relevant? If you're in a forest, what sort of trees are they? Is there a difference between spruce and pine trees? I've looked this up so many times. I still don't know. What's the lifespan of the average horse? I don't know how many times I've looked that one up. So there's a fair bit of research that goes into it, but it's also just, well, they know the world, they know what's going on. I kind of run with what they tell me. When it comes to genre, I tend to write in thriller and thriller subgenres. The compendium, so each book has ended up in a different genre. Just,
Mhm.
that's the story, that's sort of how it ends up. They always end up being sort of broadly the same because of the overall story I'm telling. Well, again, you've got a full question planned on that one. But I have a broad idea of this is sort of the story. But what's funny is the book I'm going to be drafting very soon, the next one, I'm not quite sure what genre it's in. As of right now, and I know I'm not going to until I'm a decent way in, it could be captive thriller, could be espionage, could be a bit of both. We'll
Well, I'm a
see.
horror writer,
Mm.
and from what I can see, the sun coming in my window is making me all ghosty. So I'm going to fix
Yeah, it
that
is a
and I'll be
bit.
right back. There we go. I often use natural lighting as much as I can, but when it gets overwhelming, it's like kind of a distraction.
Yeah. I filmed a video recently and I was not paying attention to the lighting particularly, and you can tell that the sun is setting while I'm filming. It's quite disorienting in the edit. It's quite funny.
Well, so it sounds very much like you're a kindred spirit in that I would be willing to bet money. You're pretty much a pantser.
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
you
hardcore.
let the story ride its course and see where it goes. Kind of that
But
thing.
you set up the basics. You have your basic idea. You have, okay, this main character, because I'm curious about you. I can't get you out of my brain, so let's see what your story is. I know where you live. That sounded sinister. um,
Mhm.
I know my character. I know where they live. I know roughly the genre and the sort of core concept of the story I'm writing.
Uh-huh.
Everything else develops very naturalistically from there. That
Oh.
Pantser Life, all the hardcore plotter didn't work for me. Decided to go 180 the other way, and
Mhm.
I've got an 8 book publishing contract, so I must be doing something right.
Yeah. Now I've got to ask you this because I said a moment ago, I think, I don't remember if I was on camera or not, but anyway, most people that know who I am, I'm pretty blessed busy. So another way you seem like a kindred spirit. You recently became artist for Fedora Art, and you're a writer, and you've got your own YouTube show, Adventures Elsewhere, and you got more going on. How in the world do you find time to do all of that?
I think I'm again in much the same camp as you here. It's not easy. There's a lot of plates spinning, and there are some things that these things build up over time. You're like, oh, I'm gonna do this thing. Okay, and now I'm gonna add that thing in. So the first thing of those was the writing for me. So
Uh-huh.
that's always the easiest to find the time for because I've been doing that for a while, and I work best at night when the veil's a bit thinner and all of those sorts of things. So by then, everything else in the day is done. So you almost don't really think about that too much. I can stay up until 2 in the morning finishing a project, and that's fine. It's happened more times than it should have, maybe, but that's a problem for tomorrow, Jay. So, all of the art stuff kind of just happens when it happens and when there's inspiration for that. So, that's sort of quite lumpy, I guess is the way of putting that. Sometimes I'll be drawing piece after piece after piece on consecutive days because I'm just like, I've got this idea, now I've got that idea, and it just keeps going. Other times I'll go for a long time without doing any of it. It is what it is. And when it comes to all the Fedora art stuff, a lot of that is in Unreal Engine. So that, that's 3D art, 3D lighting, all of that. Very much the same. And I'm very quick at both of those things, which also helps. I draw quickly, I'm quick in Unreal Engine.
Mhm.
Adventures Elsewhere is the difficult one, for
Oh.
sure, because that's something that I try and do regularly. I try and do that weekly. because I've been open about this on social media, so I don't feel the need to be particularly subtle about this. It was started as speech therapy. I
Right.
have a speech disorder. It's me trying to help myself with that and progress with that.
Uh-huh.
So trying to do that weekly, do it regularly is important, and it has helped a lot. I've still got a long way to go, but I can actually talk now, so that's nice. I mean, that's how bad it was. But trying to find all the time to do that weekly
Mhm.
can be tough. But otherwise, it just kind of happens how it happens. I'm quite spontaneous. I work well in batches. I have at the moment the flexibility to be able to do that with pretty much everything. So
Yeah.
ask me in a couple of years and I might give you a completely different answer.
Oh, you likely will.
Yep.
Now, I will say, one of the great blessings in the work I do is I've had the honor of meeting quite a lot of writers and booktubers in the UK. And I have regular conversations with quite a few of them. And I must say, being from Kentucky, as much as I love the accent, there are different locations in the UK where the accent's stronger than others. I find some hard to understand. And, it's just being in a different place. I could probably have the same issue with somebody in New Jersey or New York because I'm in Kentucky,
Hmm.
But I bring that up only because you have a lovely accent, and I'm not finding it difficult at all to understand what you're saying. You know,
But
uh,
that's really good. I'm really
very
glad that
pleasant.
you're not having an issue with that because of, years of speech issues. I always feel like that's an issue and I've been told that that's an issue. So, I mean, that shows you, that doing these things works, that,
Yeah.
sticking with these things, it helps and it works. And it's really hard. And
Uh-huh.
there are times where listening back in the edit, it's kind of like, I can really hear where
Hmm.
the difficulties are.
I am impressed, especially if you have an issue that you've come very far because it doesn't appear that you have an issue at all. You're very, very well, very eloquent. And I mean, our conversation just this little bit, very pleasant, very enjoyable to hear you speak. So you're doing great.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
I think at this point I'll move on to the next question because I think this is pretty interesting. I wonder, the determined ones as of today is two books in a series. How many books do you have planned at the moment for that series to be?
It will be 8 in
Ooh.
total. So quite a lot of books, a lot of pages. So 5 of them are written. The sixth is nearly done. That's at 70,000 words, but too many deadlines to be dealing with finishing a draft on top of that right now, which is a bit of a shame, but it is what it is. If for what it's worth, I call the Determined Ones a compendium, and not just because I'm heinously pretentious. I mean, that is a factor in it, but there is also because the structure of it is a bit strange in the sense that each and every book in the compendium is a complete standalone story. You can pick up that book, read it, close it, full complete story, like you would any other book.
Mhm.
But if you read them all together, they form a full interlinked story, much like a series would. And you can read that in any order. They're being released in what I consider to be ideal reading order. So, it flows nicely. There are links between them all. But if you want to start with the one that released today, which is, book 2 in ideal reading order, that's a great starting point. It was nearly released first because I thought it would be a great starting point. So make
Uh-huh.
of that what you will. The most fun part about this structure is that if you say read Mr. Nakagami, the first release, read Black Executioner, second release, then go back and read Mr. Nakagami again, doesn't read the same. And I
Really?
can tell you this because I've had that experience as a writer of, oh, you read it and then you read it again and hang on, is this the same book I read the first time? Because you spot all the links and all the little things that you don't
Oh,
otherwise see, and that's really fun, and it helps you sort of piece together this whole full story. And I just really love that.
oh. Well, I think it would be wonderful for the audience. And I must admit, I'm quite fascinated myself. So, there's no need for no big, long, detailed synopsis, but just in general, over the two books, if you would, how about if you share the storyline with us as much as you can without spoilers? Who's your main character and what's he up to, and where does it go in those two books? Just kind of a general thing to give the audience an idea when they go to Amazon to buy your books, what are they buying?
So, Miss Nekagami is the first release, and this is a political thriller, but it's quite an atypical political thriller. It's not the political thriller where you have the snarky protagonist and a whole load of backstabbing. That one's in the compendium, but that's not Mr. Nekagami. Mr. Nekagami, you have your main character Haru, and he's 5 foot nothing. He is a tiny, tiny man, and he's very kind-hearted. He's very sweet. He's very lovely, and his whole thing is that he wants to fight for human rights. That's his entire deal. And the book spans, give or take, 40 years of his life doing that. His whole overall goal is to fight for his own freedom as a gay man. Being gay is illegal in Hukai since the downfall. It wasn't before, but
Mhm.
it is since then. That's a whole other kettle of fish. That's
Mhm.
his entire thing. And Black Executioner takes place in about 6 months as a comparison, and that's all very much in the sort of later part of the timeline. And the main character there is a man called Ai Nagashima, who appears a lot in Miss Nekagami because he's Haru's assistant.
Mhm.
And he's an ex soldier, he's a war hero. That's sort of how he has become to be this man, and his whole quest is effectively doing what Haru couldn't do. It's him keeping the promise he made to Haru, the lengths he'll go to keep it, and whether he succeeds or not, you can make a case either way
Mhm.
as to whether he does. And it will be different depending on which order you read the books in and whether you reread them. I mean, I could touch on the overall storyline as well of the compendium.
Sure.
Yeah, because this is, I think, where you really get the interesting parts of all the sort of world building because history looms quite heavy in the Determined Ones compendium. The idea is that the whole compendium together tells the story of this continent over the period of 40 years. Some of the books span almost that complete 40 years. Some of them span as little as 6 months. I think one of them might even be a shorter time period than that. Shadow
Oh,
on the Snow spans about 5 years. So, it's take your pick as to how many
uh-huh.
years or not it spans.
Yeah. But
It's
I think
sort
with
of,
8 books, having that variation will keep it fresh for the reader. I like
oh,
that. Than
absolutely.
just a repetition of the same structure on every book. It's nice that I think you have those differences. I think that's a plus. Mhm.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, different stories call for different things. And when you've got bigger stories such as this, it just gets a bit more complicated than that sometimes, to be honest. And the whole story is this continent, this incredibly diverse and fractured continent, finding its feet after the fall of the Hukies Empire. The Hukies Empire fell a few decades earlier, and the Age of Chaos followed that, and it was a complete mess of civil wars and intercontinental wars, the founding of these various nations, and backstabbing and all sorts involved in that. But this is the next era. This is the one after the Age of Chaos,
Oh,
where everyone's breaking free from the oppressions that have come about in these civil wars and in all the laws that were passed as part of the downfall and all of these things. The 8 determined ones are those who shaped that era.
mhm.
That's their entire purpose, politically and culturally, intentionally, in Haru's case, and in Ai's case, and in Hanzo's case, or not. Because Koni plays a huge role in the cultural and political shift of the continent towards the end of the timeline, but it's never what he intended to do. He was like, I don't want to be involved in this. It's kind of ironic. I don't want to be involved in this. I'm going to run away. And in doing that, he might have been the key person all along.
Fascinating. I really like the sound of it because, you've got this fictional Asian world, kind of seems like a crime drama. It's more of a thriller. But as you were describing the whole series, It's almost as if all of that is sitting on top the framework of like a grand fantasy. You know, you take a grand fantasy, it's a wide scope with a lot of reach and different characters and different settings and different things going on. Seems like you kind of had that framework underneath. Is that intentional or is that just the way it's turned out?
I mean, that's just the way it's turned out. I
Yeah.
mean, I think the crime drama thing, I've sort of been ruminating this as we've been talking, ruminating on this. I think you can definitely make the case for that being a huge element, especially in certain books where there are threads of treason, there are threads of corruption, there's threads of political backstabbing and backroom deals and espionage. That's all there. So if you like crime dramas and that sort of vibe, that
Uh,
is very much there under the surface, or maybe less so under the surface, depending on the book.
oh,
But I don't think it's wrong to call Mr. Nekagami an epic in
oh,
some sort of proportion. I don't think that's wrong because it is quite a sweeping story. It takes place over a long stretch of time. You meet a lot of people. It's only 200 pages,
oh.
sure, but it doesn't really. It's one of those books that feels long and feels short at the same time, and you
Mhm.
do get that sort of sweeping epic tale like you might in a big fantasy series. I mean, that's what fantasy is known for, is these big sweeping tales. I
Yeah.
think you do get that in other genres. It's just not really seen in the same light. I guess it's sort of happened by accident
Well, I
here,
tell you
and
what.
I'm happy for it to be there for sure.
I actually recommend the writers, and I think you're wonderfully on the right path in taking 200 pages and using your skills as a writer to put 500 pages worth of story into 200 pages. I think that's brilliant because nobody has time to read a 1,000 page book anymore. But if they read your 200-page book and they get the story of a much larger book, why, that's the perfect little formula because they can read that shorter book in a lot less time and enjoy it and feel like they've read some grand great big book. I think that's a perfect formula. I think that's a wonderful way for a writer to go, or it seems like you're right on track with that. So, because of
Oh, that's
time, I'm going to
awesome.
bounce on to the next section. And this I try to give to every guest on my show because I like, I'm the host. I'll ask a few questions, kind of guide it along. But, the show is about you. The audience, if they come here, they come here to see you. So I like to give you the opportunity to share with the audience anything that you like. So the stage is yours, and speak of anything that's on your mind or that you believe in. It's up to you.
Okay, well, I guess it's worth mentioning. We've mentioned Miss Nakagami. You can actually see that on my shelf behind me. There it is. Black Executioner, I don't have an author copy of quite yet. So if you order quickly, you might get yours before mine. It's genuinely happened before, so it could happen again. It'd be very, very funny if it did. I also have a couple of shorter pieces published in anthologies. I've got one that's related to the Determined Ones and one that isn't. They are in the Cozy-ish and Dream Court anthologies, respectively. There'll be a bit more about that later. You can find that on my website, which we'll get onto a bit later on. I
Awesome.
thought in this section it'd be fun to do a sort of little bit of trivia stroke behind a little bit behind the scenes as a peek because this is something I really like. So we've got a couple about drafting and the writing process, and a couple about publishing and more of that side of things, and the sort of little Easter eggs and things like that that I put in because I think that's fun. So the first point is I handwrite all my first drafts.
Oh.
I do it all longhand. There's not a computer in sight in the first draft. My hand and a pen and some paper, that is it. Absolutely everything I write. And then what's funny is because of the compendium and how that came to fruition, Black Executioner is a very special book. It's the second book I drafted, and it's release book two. It's book two in the release order. And it's the only one where that's the case besides the last one. And the only reason the last book is being drafted last is because that's when the deadline is. Otherwise, I probably would have ended up drafting that sooner. So that's a fun little Easter egg about this particular book. For what it's worth, Miss Nakagami, first one out, was drafted third, so I drafted it after Black Executioner. And the seventh one in release order was the one I drafted first. So, that's all over the place. That's just a fun little Easter egg, I think. So a couple
I
about
would I would get very confused. I've never tried to write 8 books. I would be in a mess. And I don't do deadlines in my company. I don't believe in them. But I know there are a lot of people who are pressed for deadlines, and that makes it even harder. And as if it ain't enough to try to write 8 books. So, Jade, I'm wondering, are your books self-published or do you have them published through a publishing house?
I very nearly ended up self-publishing because opportunities for indie thriller don't exist. They just don't. And I was right on the cusp of doing it when I saw a pitch contest who were, which was being held by my dream publishing house. So I was lucky enough to win a contract off of that,
Oh,
which was really, really cool. I've talked about that at length on my podcast Adventures Elsewhere, but like that was a really big deal. And one of the really fun things that my publisher has sort of let me do is not only my own covers and my own interior art, and I actually brought my books over. So you can see the Mr. Nekagami cover, that is made by me, and the interior art is as well, and the interior art for my other publications, which are in these anthologies, that's also done by me. So that's a really fun little thing that they let you do for anything you publish with them. But my
oh,
other favourite little Easter egg is that if you take the first letter of each chapter title in my work, it spells something out.
oh.
This is true for everything I've written with chapters, and in the determined ones, that spells out the main character's name. There's a little bit extra at the beginning of Mr. Nakagami, so it's not just Haru's name, there's a tiny little bit extra because there are more chapters in that book than letters Haru has in his name. So that's a fun little thing for you to pick up on in each and every book that I write.
Oh, well, that's cool. And it's also cool that you won a contest that resulted in a publishing contract. That's pretty kick butt. That's awesome. It would
So
only
much work.
be fair. It's just only fair if you would go ahead and name the publisher. Give them some praise because they have opened a great door for you.
Oh, they certainly have. I'm so grateful to Shadow Spark Publishing. They've been so great. Mandy is such a great editor. She's been so great throughout the entire process. So thankful that they took a chance on my weird political thriller, which was the one they requested back in Spark Pit. That's the one that got me the contract. So again, it's got to be worth a read. So
Mhm.
they've been great. And another fun little fact, I guess, a little bonus one that I hadn't scripted. Black Executioner is their first book of 2026, which is a pretty
Wow,
huge honor, actually.
cool. And what was the name of the publisher again?
It's the Shadow Spark Publishing.
Shadow Spark
It's, yeah,
Publishing.
yeah,
Cool
they've been
audience.
around
You
for
might want to
seven
check
years.
them out, see what they have going on. Uh,
They've got a lot of good books, I can tell you that from reading them, and it's their seventh year this year. That's seventh anniversary is coming up in May.
oh, that sounds fantastic. So if I may, what was the actual competition? Was it a short story competition or something else altogether?
It was a Twitter pitch contest, much like in the vein of Pit Mad, DV Pit, all of those sorts of things. They hosted their own version of that. So, it was an elevator pitch. You were allowed to include images or videos. So, me being me, got to flex that undergraduate degree where I can. Get an Unreal Engine, make some full Unreal Engine pitch trailers for my books. Got a request on day one.
Wow.
They wanted the full manuscript, send that in blank, and then the pitch contest lasted a month. Then obviously they had to read all the books and make decisions and all of these things. And so yeah, it's a lot of waiting after that. So that was pretty stressful. But
Mhm. Now, one thing I really need to do because the audience is probably going nuts wondering how to reach you. So if you would share any website that you have or social media presences so that they can reach out and say hello.
So it's fortuitous you asking about the website because that actually launched today. Something I
Oh,
meant to get done for book one, but too much work, so it's happened for the second one instead. And on the website, that is jadeblack.altavista.org. I can bounce you a link to that if
that'd be
you would
great.
like. Would that be great? Okay. Because Alta Vista isn't necessarily spelled how you'd expect it to be.
Mhm.
So on my website, there's a homepage where you can just see immediately what I've published, click the button, and it'll take you straight to where you can get that. And
Oh,
you can also see on there all of my scheduled releases. So that's my 6 other books in the compendium, plus a little novelette that I have coming out this year as well that's unrelated. That's coming on summer solstice as well. I'm really looking forward to that one. I'm really, really keen on that one. That one's really fun. But you can see all of that. You can see all of the different things about the upcoming books. You can see titles, release dates, taglines, genres, all of those sorts of things, who the main character is. There's a whole page about the different characters. They've all got their own sort of trademark TDO silhouette portraits as well. So there's official character art. There's a map of the continent and a little bit about each nation and the neutral zone as well. A little bit about that in there, which is really fun. And you can find out a bit about me. My portfolio, a limited amount of the portfolio is also on there if you're curious to see what I got up to at university and a bit beyond that as well. And what else is on the website? There's so much. There's also Adventures Elsewhere reviews. There's also a page about that on the website, which is where I review indie books and indie ARCs. I'm now sort of open to that in certain genres, certain lengths. What I can and can't take is quite limited, but you can see all the information on there. Their reviews are posted on Goodreads and eventually on YouTube as well, but that takes longer. So, but you can see all the books I've reviewed there, what I've rated them, what genre they are, who they're by. There are 4 on there already. I'd be more than happy to have submissions you can submit from the website as well. So if you're a writer, by all means check that out, especially if you're in the dark lit sort of space. That's somewhere you want to go. Really hard to find places to submit dark lit ARCs, being the change I want to see.
mhm.
And if you want to connect with me on the various different social media platforms, I'm on a lot of them. So Twitter, I am at JadeBlack21. This is where my writing is. I do writing updates just about every morning. I write at night, write about, I give you an update on that the following morning. So whether that's writing, whether that's editing, whatever I'm up to, you can see what I'm working on in pretty much real time. I also host the monthly Thrills prompts as well, which is really fun. By all means, come and join in the fun. I'm also Jade Black 21 on YouTube. That's where the Adventures Elsewhere shows are. So Adventures Elsewhere podcast and Adventures Elsewhere reviews are both there.
Mhm.
I'm also on Instagram and Pinterest as Jade_Black21. I'm on those a little bit less, but I'm still pretty active on both of those. I'm not quite sure ever what I'm doing on there. If you like chaos unscripted vibes, you'll like it there. I do also technically exist on Blue Sky, but I don't use it because I don't really have time to develop games at the minute because
Yeah.
that's what Blue Sky's all about. But I'm there if you're so inclined. I'm JBlack21 on there as well. I don't know how I've managed to get unified usernames across everything, but I have, and I'm very pleased about it.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Makes it make it a lot easier for people to find you.
It sure
And
does.
that's the whole name of the game. You got to let them know you exist and where you exist. You got to have a presence, and it's fantastic that you're creating such a great presence. And please do send me the link to your website so I can include it in the YouTube description, and also so I can check out your site. I'm very eager to see it. It sounds wonderful, and so that'd be fantastic. As it is, the little show has to come to an end. And but I've got to say, it's been a lot of fun, very interesting, a lot of things that either come from directions I haven't traveled myself or new things I've never heard of. There's been a lot of neat stuff in here. The storyline is very fresh and very new to me. Um, your publisher, very nice to hear about them. It's just an awful lot of good stuff in this show, and I really appreciate you coming on and sharing so much with us. It's been an absolute pleasure. It really has. Ladies and gentlemen, I hate to cut it, but well, that's the way it goes. This is episode 43 of Relax and Chat. I hope you've enjoyed the show. I have no doubt that you've enjoyed meeting Jade Black. What a very fascinating person. A lot going on, very busy person, and a whole lot more to bring to the writing world. Very exciting to see all that as it appears. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us today. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I hope you'll join us for the next show. Bye bye, everybody.